We are a theranostic company. Amorfix is a diagnostic and therapeutic company, and we look at the impact of genomics and proteomics from two levels, whether there is a link between diagnostic and whether there is a link to therapeutic. So quite often the angle that we come through is by looking at cause of the disease from protein function. Trend that is rising. In the older days, people would look at genomics and proteomics as early stage science, and complexity of the science was a barrier for companies to consider the collection of information through the proteomics or genomics sciences as a way to actually use a diagnostic towards identification or presence of a disease. And what I'm seeing over years, and more specifically in the last 2 years, is there is a shift from the industry to view information that is coming from these areas more and more credible. The science that you can actually implement in clinical settings. So always the barrier was, yes, it's good, it's generating a lot of interesting information, it shows correlation with certain disease, but at a clinical setting in a hospital, this might not be functional. So there was a big resistance towards that. So we've seen that that's starting to change. The other thing that has changed is the advent of personalized medicine. And genomics and proteomics are the basis of understanding how some of these diseases are specific to a specific gene or specific genetic background. And according to that genetic background, now the companies are thinking of developing drugs that addresses the needs of that specific group. Our experience relates around a European market, but right now our main flagship diagnostic opportunities in Alzheimer's disease. So from a regulatory perspective, that's still a journey that we have to take, but looking at what other companies have gone through, it's a very complex area, and also it's an area that is evolving too. Even the regulators are trying to go with the progress of the science and understand what information is relevant to determining an endpoint and how you evaluate the efficacy of a drug. We are a public company. Amorfix is a public company trading on TSX. So our challenge is not quite the same as a private company, but understanding that in the private environment, especially these days, and especially in Canada, that has been always a challenge. From a public company point of view, we have perhaps a better advantage in trying to raise financing because our pool of money comes from public sources, institutional investors, and so on. So we have various ways of trying to leverage that shareholder base in order to raise financing towards a specific event for the company. And historically, we have had great success in doing that. I call it the Prelight bulb events. These are events that research is shaping up in great institutions like the ones that you find around the Mars and discovery districts. A number of affiliated teaching hospitals, university, exciting science going. Every day there is a wow factor. So while that is happening, I think the key is these sort of events link between industry and academia, knowing how do you take some of these exciting science, fund it properly, and bring the proper advice in order to most efficiently push the science from bench to basically to bed, to the translational aspect of the science.